Hello, everybody. My name is Carolyn Chrisman, and I am the CEO of the Council for Military Spouse Clubs. I, along with my colleague, Tayaka Booker, will be serving as your moderators today. As we come together to kick off our Uncomfortable Conversation series, I want to take a minute to say thank you to those of you who signed up to join our webinar, and a special thank you to all the wonderful people who shared their frustrations on this topic, causing us to host this event. Additionally, I would like to personally thank those who answered my call and graciously volunteered to serve on our panel. So thank you very much. Next time I call, please don't hang up on me. Okay, so the council has gathered this panel together so that we can gather ideas on how spouse clubs can be more inclusive, more welcoming, and attract a more diverse community to better match the makeup of their installation. This is a subject that everyone knows is an issue, but most people don't know how to talk about it. Our intent is to bring to light the feelings, the perceptions, and the perspectives of the Black military spouse that others truly don't experience. We decided to make this panel from all one race instead of including people from other races because we felt it would offer a broader perspective and a more depth from the group. We want to ask them what clubs can do to make them want to join and participate, and provide some concrete ways to connect with minority populations on all of our installations. I am sure that sometime in the next hour, I will say something that doesn't agree with someone or doesn't sit right with you. I apologize for that now, and I hope you all understand our intentions as we work through all these questions. Now, as far as the rules of the engagement, for the audience, I would like to let you know that I requested that our panelists only share stories about things they have personally experienced, either themselves or witnessed themselves. Just like the game of telephone, stories can get embellished as they are passed from person to person. This way, we can all be assured that our panelists are sharing true and accurate accounts to help us learn and grow. The guidelines for those of you who are attending: the chat feature is available. We also have the Q&A open. If you would like to put something out there for us to either ask a question, or if you want to throw out a discussion point, either one you can use. Chat's probably easier to find right now. So throw it up in there, and we have 2 different board members who are monitoring those, and they're going to jump in and ask the question to either Tayaka or me or to our panelists so that we can get everybody's question discussed. Please remember that this discussion scope is spouse clubs. As much as we would love to change the world, today we are gathered to help club leaders understand the perspective from the lens of the Black military spouse. If inappropriate comments are put into the chat or the Q&A, they will be deleted. Additionally, if you have an idea that might help clubs be more inclusive that you would like discussed, please also put that in the Q&A or the chat so we can share those ideas and opinions and talk about how ways to make that work. I'm also required to mention that what the panelists say is their own opinion and not necessarily endorsed by the council, any of the 5 services, or the Department of Defense. We are trying to bring the concepts to light that may help clubs flourish and grow their memberships for future generations. Okay, now that all the business is over with, we're going to get started with some of our questions. First of all, I would like the panelists to introduce themselves. So if you can share where you're currently stationed, how long you've been a military spouse, and the years of interaction you've had with spouse clubs, that would be awesome. So I'm just going to look up on my screen and start with Katrina, because she's listed here first. So if you want to jump in and give us a rundown, that'd be awesome.
As Carolyn stated, I'm Katrina Smith. We are currently stationed at JBSA Fort Sam Houston. I've been a military spouse for 27 years and a part of various spouses clubs at different installations. So not the entire 27 years, but I have been pretty active in spouses clubs.
Thank you, Katrina. All right, Michelle, you're up next.
Hi, I'm Michelle Brito. I think I'm the old lady in the bunch. I've been an Army spouse for 37 years. Been involved with spouses clubs for about 30 of those years. I've held several different board positions. Right now, I'm an honorary president, I believe. And we are currently at Fort Eustis, Virginia.
Thanks, Michelle. Okay, Tanisha.
Hello, my name is Tanisha Caldwell. My family, we're currently stationed at the lovely Sun City of El Paso, Texas. I have been a spouse for 16 years, sweet 16, and I have been in spouse clubs over half of those years. I would say about 8 to 10. And I think that's all the questions.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's
Okay.
good. So Kia's up next, but I don't see her. So maybe we're,
Can you hear me?
oh, I can hear you, but I just can't see
Okay.
you.
Good
Go
evening,
ahead.
everybody. My name is Kia Graham. I have been a military spouse and an Army spouse for 15 years. And my first experience with spouse clubs was 14 years ago. So since the beginning. And we are stationed technically Fort Hamilton in Brooklyn, but we live in New Jersey.
Wonderful. All right. And last but not least, our other moderator, Teaka, you're up.
Good evening. My name is Tiaka Booker. I have been a proud AMO wife for 17 years. My husband is active duty Air Force. I have been involved with various spouse clubs for about 13 of our lovely 17 years doing this lifestyle. And we are currently stationed at Langley Air Force Base in Virginia.
All right. Okay.
So I guess I want to kind of kick off because we're here to talk about spouse clubs and being Black spouses and but just minority spouses in general. And I know that for me, when I think about spouse clubs, there's good and bad that comes with it. I'm looking for a sisterhood, whether it's with people that look like me or is people who've had experience in the lifestyle. I have had good experiences as well as a couple of bad ones in terms of trying to fit in, or I guess make myself fit into a perception that I had. And in some cases, it was on me. I had the wrong perception. I created this bubble that I felt I needed to be in, and I didn't. But I'm a little curious in terms of what, if you guys are willing to share some of your general feelings, overall opinions of spouse clubs when you were first getting into trying to be active with spouse clubs.
All right. Who wants to go first? All right, Kia, go ahead. Oh, wait, you're muted, Kia.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so same thing. When I first joined the first spouse club that I had experienced, which was in Fort Campbell, I was looking for a sisterhood. I was newly married. So I just wanted to get a better understanding of the military lifestyle. And like you, probably, Tiaka, I did not have anyone there that looked like me. So even though that was a deterrent, I still went because I did want to, get a better understanding of the military lifestyle. But there wasn't anybody that looked like me that maybe can relate to me how I needed to be related to.
Okay, Michelle.
Yeah, I'll add something. So, in the dark ages, when my husband came in the Army, joining the Spouses Club was just one of those things that you did. You got to a new place, typically it was in the summertime, and you go to some big information fair, and joining the Spouses Club was just what you did. And so I just got into that habit, and every time we would PCS, I would join the Spouses Club. I didn't necessarily look at the population that was already there. And now my involvement, once I became a member, did have a lot to do with the other people that were part of the club and probably the personality of that club. And so once I got in and there were people who shared similar interests as mine, or the clubs had great programs that were going on, then I would continue being involved with it. But joining, it was just kind of an automatic thing that I did over the years.
Tanisha.
I did not intend to join the spouse club. I'm just gonna be honest. But we were at Fort Hood and I started working, so I made excuses on why I couldn't go to things. And then when we were at Leavenworth, I went with a friend. I was invited with a friend. So that helped take off the ease a lot. And once I started going with a friend who looked like me and we had the same interests, we started going to things together. But when I first initially joined, I made every excuse not to go. And once I started going, I found that sisterhood, that friendship of people who had the same problems, same being a military spouse. You found that support system. So that was my experience.
So when it comes to spouses clubs, and guys have sort of touched on this a little bit, but if we could dig in a little bit further so that some of the folks who are here to watch this panel have some nuggets to take home with them to make positive change. What do you wish clubs would do to attract members who are from the more diverse community that we have? Anyone? Go ahead, Tanisha.
I'll go first. I have this statement that I say, meet people where they are. And sometimes it may be uncomfortable for some people to meet people where they are, but I'm going to use a Department of Defense statistic. 47% of the military as a whole is diverse. And the military takes on recognizing those days. And I know it can be a hard topic for some people. It can, let's just be honest. And when I say meet them where they are, if you feel uncomfortable, saying, we're all African American on here, how do I attract more African Americans to the club? I'm a member of some other organizations. You can partner with other organizations on the post or installation. When the installation is recognizing Black History Month, Hispanic Heritage Month, partner with those events. Set up a booth. Most bases just had a German festival, Oktoberfest. Sorry, not a German festival, Oktoberfest. Set up a booth, say we're here, these are some things that we offer, come join us. So that is my meet them where they are. And especially like the younger spouses, you can find them SLAM, the play groups. That's ways to meet them, to make yourself available.
That's great. Pia, did you have something you were trying to add?
That's pretty much what I was going to say. So I completely agree with that. Showing up where, you want to bring in those diverse populations, show up to Hispanic History Month, show up to Oktoberfest, show up to, whatever events that the post is having or the community is having that includes those spouses. Bring them in, show them that you care about them, show them that you care about their event. So that would be the perfect way to, make everyone feel like they belong.
Okay, that sounds awesome. It's a great idea.
To piggyback and jump in with that, I would also say just be yourself. I normally do a couple of command spouse briefings, and I am constantly telling the commander wives, be yourself. I want to see that you're a person. I want to see that you yell at your kids the same way I yell at my kids, kind of thing. And that's what I feel like people are looking for at spouse clubs, is to see that it's not just a group that's coming together to find that new lunch spot or to just go have coffee here and there, but you are also struggling with getting your child to do homework. You are also looking at the yard like, oh my goodness, you expect for me to mow what? You find those little small connections with the other spouses and you're like, oh, like I can do this, because I know that when we first joined, if you picture Stepford Wives, that's kind of how I pictured spouse club. So our first space I did not join, because my thing is, you are not putting me in that box. I'm not going to have dinner ready right when he comes home. It is what it is. But then our next base, I hooked up with the spouses club, and I'm like, oh, like this is a pretty cool group of people. Like they told me all the ins and outs, taught me the tricks. I met spouses who were brand new like me, Also met spouses that have been doing it for forever and a day. So they knew all the tea to give me, like, hey, like, no, if you do this, like, I promise it's not that bad. And it also made the time at the base go by a lot quicker. In some cases, yay, but in other cases, it's like it became your favorite base and you didn't want to leave. But to kind of slide into the next question, because we're telling clubs how to, what would kind of get us to go, I really want to join. Have you guys had any experiences where you came out to a club and you felt unwelcome or unwanted or uninvited? Like you're there and they're just like, oh my God, why are you here?
Trina?
I don't think it's just a point of not feeling welcome, but I think sometimes if people are not friendly, if they're not speaking to you, it sort of makes you feel isolated. So if you come to an event and nobody is making you feel included, it's not that you don't feel like you don't belong, but they're not making you feel a part of the organization. And so I think that those are some of the things that we need to work on when we have people who are coming to our groups for the first time, making them feel, like making a big deal about their attendance, making them feel welcome. Sometimes I recall being at clubs and, it may be my first time and I'm sitting at a table and the entire table could have a conversation, but they're not talking about anything that is really of interest for me. And for me, what I try to do is when I see people who are at a table and they're not being brought into the conversation, I either try to change the conversation to where, everybody sort of has something to contribute to the conversation versus, just sitting there and everybody's carrying on.
Oh, that's great. That's wonderful advice. Anybody else have a story where they weren't included, Michelle?
Well, my story wasn't that I wasn't included, but I have seen, kind of piggybacking off what Katrina had to say, I've been at clubs where there is sometimes a hospitality person that's a board position, and that person would introduce or announce anyone that they were a brand new member or was their first time coming to an event. And possibly if there were several brand new people, put all those people together at a table to meet one another. And just little things like that, just to help people feel more welcome and like they're not the only new person there, kind of like when kids go to school.
Yeah, well, one thing I can share that I saw a club do that I thought was really exciting was when you signed up to attend whatever the event was, there was a block that said, is this your first time? And you checked it if it was your first time. And then the people, like when you walk in the door, the hospitality person or whoever it was who's handing you your name tag would be like, oh, it's your first time, welcome. They'd have a name tag, they'd have some kind of little star on it or a dot or a ribbon or something. And then they would call over, board member A, would you please come up, or we have a new person here. Would you, take them around and introduce them? And then board member B was ready to do for the next person. And then they would sort of chat among themselves, like 3 new people would come in, and then they would have one person already there. And then they would be like, well, hey, why don't we see if we can find you guys a table? Maybe you can sit together since you're all new. And it was just a more controlled environment. So you felt like, if you were like, I am an unconformist, I don't want to do that, you could say, thanks, I'm good, and walk away. But if you really were uncomfortable, it was a way to pull people together. And I thought that was a very positive first impression that somebody would have walking in. So that's just a concrete thing that we've talked about within the council before. Okay, so I want to hear if you guys have like a very specific story about something that when you were part of a spouses club just really resonated with you as a good story that you think would be really fun to share, so that you can show everybody who's here that there are some really good things about spouses clubs and you've been a part of it and you've seen it happen. So anybody got something they want to share? Nobody has a good story. All right. Michelle can go, and then
Oh, no,
I'll grab Tanisha.
Tanisha has one.
Okay.
Tanisha can go first. Go ahead,
Okay,
Tanisha.
go ahead, Tanisha.
If I can unmute myself. A story that I have, I guess I have a lot of, I don't want to say a lot of stories, but I'll just give an overall story. It's kind of like something all the spouse clubs do. When you see, and from working on the board, when you see the hard work that you're doing and how rewarding it could go back into the community, that's like, okay, my work is not in vain. I'm just going to plug that in. Don't complain about it, be about it. However, a feel-good story that I have, of one of the last positions that I had was treasurer on a spouse club, and I voiced my opinion because I was the only person that looked like myself that was on the board. And I voiced it to the board, and the board heard me. They talked to me about it, and I wasn't, it's kind of, I don't want to say, it's 2024. Yes, it could be a taboo subject. It could make you feel uncomfortable saying it. But yes, you want to say, I don't see anybody else that look like me. And one of the members, she was a retiree in the area. She pointed out to me some people that looked like me, that were members of the clubs, and I was able to connect with them. And we end up recruiting people to be on the board the next year. But if I had not said that and I would kept that feeling inside, I wouldn't have, I don't know if that change would have happened. And can I give a shout out to that club?
Of course.
Shout out to the Fort Knox Spouse Club. Thank you.
There you
Okay.
That's great. All right, Michelle, did you have something else?
Yeah, I was just going for a positive experience. I was going to throw out Fort Irwin, California. We've been stationed there twice, and it was one of the more active spouses clubs and more successful spouses clubs that I've seen. And I think that part of that is because you are literally in the middle of nowhere and there's nothing else to do. And so when there were spouse club events, yes, the board was involved, but all of the membership was involved, and even at times the husbands or the service members were involved, and we had amazing fundraisers and gave out tons of money in scholarships and things. But again, like I said before, sometimes it has to do with the personality of the club. But I think in my experience, the clubs that are in places where you don't have a lot to do outside the installation have been the most successful and most vibrant. So I think that's something that you can go and look for in not just those places. So having had the positive experience there, when I went to another location that was also very remote, they probably got sick of me, but I said a lot of, hey, well, Fort Irwin can do this. Why can't we do this here? And, things like that. It was just, just remembering a good time and trying to share it with the next location.
Yes, definitely. Kia or Katrina, Tayaka, you got anything you want to add?
I do. So I guess one of my most positive experiences is I actually met one of my best friends at a spouse club. Our third base, we were at Davis-Monthan. One of the first events was my first event. It was also hers. We were not allowed to sit next to somebody we knew, and we were playing glow in the dark bingo. Me and her, we were just having a moment next to each other where our cards weren't right. We couldn't find certain things, and we're looking at each other like, hey, like, do you know this? No, I don't know. Do you know? Do you know who to ask? She does not look like me in any way, shape, or form. And we just like vibed out at that event. Next thing you know, they asked about people volunteering to be on the board. Me and her both volunteered for lower positions, a parliamentarian and another like secretary or something like that. And from then, we have been inseparable. We have been like side by side, everything. When I decided to go into the president role, she went in as my VP. And we if you saw one, you saw the other. And even to this day, even though we are at separate bases, we literally talk on the phone every single day. When we go and see our respective spouse clubs, it's like, hey, I went to the spouse event today. This is what our club is doing. What is your club doing? So it's really nice to have that friend that I can check in with. She keeps me grounded and vice versa. And she also has helped me like kind of see beyond just this is how I'm seeing things because I'm Tiaka, but hey, like here's a bigger picture. Like how do we like change that? Because I know with me and her, we did sit down when we took over our club to go, hey, like how do we pull in more people? At that time, we weren't looking at race. We were more so looking at how do we get these younger spouses from sitting at home and being behind the keyboard saying, hey, I'm looking for friends, but never come from behind the keyboard. So yeah, I can honestly say hands down that has probably been my best experience with a spouse club is the fact that I got a best friend out of it.
Well, we have a question from the audience. It sounds like there's some great stuff happening at Joint Base Lewis McChord. So the attendee asks, spouses clubs were historically officer spouses clubs. At JBLM, we have an all ranks club and it is Joint Army Air Force. Our current president is a minority enlisted spouse. We heavily recruit and share that it is all ranks and all are welcome. When people see it, they believe it and get past the hang up of it just being for officers. Are your clubs still primarily officer spouses?
Denisha?
The ones that I have been involved in, no, it's open to everybody, even to retirees and members of the community. The only one that I have been involved in that was only officers was in Hawaii, and that was not Army, it was Air Force.
I think we talked about that most of the Army clubs have joined together, and that it's just a few of our sister services where they still are separate.
I know the
You
Air
know
Force
that.
is slow. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I know the Air Force, we are slowly combining clubs as well. Quite a few of our officer and enlisted populations have looked at each other and said, hey, we are in this together. We're doing the exact same thing. How about we join forces and do it together?
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's definitely one of the things that the council kind of stands behind is diversity for everything, not just race, but also working spouse, male spouse, LGBTQIA folks, and everybody should feel included because you're there to meet each other and you're there to do stuff for the good of your community. So everybody's in the community should be able to participate within that. So I'm happy to hear that most everybody who's here has a combined club already, and we can really hope that we can move on and have all of the spouses clubs be combined at some point in time. That's great. Great question. Appreciate that. Tiaka, I think you're up next with one of your questions.
Yes. So other than, kind of thinking about as a club, what suggestions would you put out there to try to help clubs, I guess, entice a diverse membership?
One thing that was proposed to me, and I'm not sure if the spouses clubs are up to a name change. Someone asked me if we consider, doing like an international spouses club to kind of be inclusive of just everybody. And even if it's just not the international club, if we're just looking at a name change to where it encompasses everyone. And I know spouses does include everyone, but to change the language to where it embodies, I guess, everybody's ethnicities.
Yeah, and not just ethnicities, but community. I mean, there are clubs out there that encourage civilian employees to join, the employees themselves or their spouse. However, anybody out there who wants to be a part of the organization. So language is important because people need to feel like they're welcomed no matter what. Anybody else have a comment on how to entice people to serve or volunteer or be on your board? Yes, Kia. Thank you.
I would just say consider the events that we're having that may try to entice people. Make sure that we're catering to male spouses as well as female spouses. I see a comment in the chat to make sure that the male spouse is included also. So, you know, I don't know that a man might want to come together for a social mani-pedi. So we have to consider, you know, something that our male spouses might want to be interested in also, so that they'll come to those events and feel that they're included as well.
Yes, definitely. I'd also say that some of your events, if you can set them up so that there is a, I don't want to say icebreaker. A lot of people are really against icebreakers, but the point is that you mix it up and encourage people to connect in different ways other than just sitting down next to somebody and hoping they're going to talk to you. I'm a big rule follower myself. So if the rules say I have to do this, then I'm going to go, okay, first step, I have to do this. Next step, I have to do that. But I'm still an introvert. So if I sit down, unless I have rules I have to follow, I might not engage 100% with everybody. So that's something to keep in mind, that there are a lot of folks who enjoy having a menu or a set schedule of events that they're supposed to be a part of. Okay, awesome. So what can we fix with the Spouses Club? How can we make changes? And I think what we're talking about is on the board itself. The board is the one that's going to rewrite the bylaws or rewrite the Constitution or approve the marketing or approve the programs. How can we fix, because so far it's not been as inclusive as it should be. So how do we change that? Does anybody have any like real concrete ideas of something that might really help? Michelle.
So what I was going to add, and kind of goes to the last question as well. I think your starting point is your board. If you're looking for diversity, when at the beginning of the board year, when you're putting the board together, you have to somehow concentrate on the diversity part of it. Then once you've got a couple people on your board that people who are possible members can look at and see, oh, there is someone that looks like me. Maybe that is a good place to join. Or years ago, when I was a Spouses Club president, I pulled in my friends because I wasn't necessarily excited about running for president. I kind of got roped into it.
It always works.
Yeah, and so I was like, okay, I'm pulling some of my friends, in this with me. Not that all of my friends are Black. Obviously, I have friends of lots of different colors, but I pulled and I was thinking about the diversity of it. And I knew that if I could pull friends, of all different colors into the board, then that would attract people from the community, the spouse community onto, into the membership. So I think your starting point is your board. So your board's just got to be aware and just cognizant of the issue.
Wonderful. Anybody else have a comment on that? Tanisha?
I would like to offer, I guess, resources. There are resources out there if your board is not diverse. Secure Family Initiatives, they offer resources on how to help recruit with people of color. Also, use your own base, your resources, MWR, ACS. Like we said, these events, if you don't know how to get there, or in your local community, NAACP, you can partner with these type of organizations, and you can also tell them the things that the spouse clubs are doing. Hey, we have this thrift shop, or we're doing fundraisers for scholarships or grants for the communities. And I'm sure if you tell them that you're doing that, they're going to try to partner with you.
All right, that's great. Okay, anybody else? Okay, do we have anything coming through on the chat that we need to ask? I've seen things popping up, but I haven't really read anything. So I just want to make sure we're good. Right, we touched on male spouses being included. That's great. We will also do another uncomfortable conversation series discussion where we talk about diversity when it comes to other folks out there, and one of that would be, we'd really like to talk about the male spouse and what they need to feel included in part of it. So that'll come up later on down the line. And there's somebody made a comment on here. I just like to build up. It says, ensure your marketing materials are welcoming to the entire community. And I'd love to hear what you guys think that means. What would you do to make your marketing material be more welcoming? Not really sure how to approach that. It's the only reason why I would ask.
I would say, at least from a visual standpoint, include photos that include diversity. Like if there are, Hispanic members, Black members, white members, whatever, like make sure that you're showing that this is the population here and that this is what we have to offer, that you're not going to be alone, that we, want everybody to feel welcome. We have everybody, we welcome everybody, obviously. So, seeing is believing, what somebody said, showing it, making them understand that we are who we say we are, we want you, and we accept you.
Okay, great. Katrina?
It's just like Kia mentioned, but I think we've discussed before that sometimes we may be the only one, and that may be the marketing is to try to get other people to come in. And so in a club's quest to put out, their marketing, sometimes it may be only one Black spouse or Hispanic spouse or Asian spouse. And I mean, sometimes that's okay depending on the population, but we do want to recruit more people to be a part of those organizations. I mean, a part of that club that, is more, that looks like you. We want to be well-rounded, represent our whole entire military community.
Okay. Awesome. Do you still have, is your hand up, Tanisha? Okay.
In the marketing, be real, be relatable. Like she said earlier, I'm new here. I don't know anything. Instead of going on the Facebook page, I'm new here. Hey, I hate it here. I'm sure we've all had those places I don't like. So, I know, for example, I was not this is my second time in El Paso. My first time I was not thrilled, and I joined the spouse club here, and they showed me places here in El Paso that I did not knew existed, and I had a blast, and I did not want to leave. So, I mean, just be real, be personable. It doesn't have to be professional marketing, but just, be honest.
That's awesome. Okay.
I will also add to that, to know about some of the events that's happening at your base. I know that when we were overseas at Anderson, we always held a bake sale during one of the major exercises because it got us the most attention. We are out there while we have all these visiting countries, and they're asking us about the recipes that we use for our baked goods, and that's getting us to stand around the table and talk. So not only are we raising money for scholarships, which you give us something to talk about, but now I get to share my recipe because you're asking me about my secret recipe for zucchini bread or that apple pie. And then it's like, well, hey, like, how often do you guys do this? So doing that kind of sparked more conversation, and it allowed for us to, I guess, use the event to kind of market ourselves by word of mouth, because you got to actually see us in action. And it's a group, and we're standing there, and the way that we're standing, you don't know who's actually a part of the club and who's not, because we're all just crowded around, just trying to get a recipe, to be honest, or to work out, hey, this apple pie is really good. I don't know how to make it. If I shoot you a text, can you make it on this day and drop it off at the house? Like, that really helped us out a lot.
That's great. Okay, so here's another one that came up and in discussion prior to this event. And I'll probably say this wrong, but you know how when you go to an installation and they have a lot of international folks who are stationed there, like Fort Leavenworth, I know does this, Fort Eustis has it. I'm sure there's other joint bases that have it. And a lot of times they'll do like this international showcase, or however you want to call it, where each country sets up a table, they share their culture, they share their food. What do you guys think about doing something where the different cultures within the club, not international, but within the United States or whatever, you know, would showcase sort of their race or their culture? Because a lot of people want to just blend in and be one of the crowd. You know, they just want to be accepted for who they are, whatever they are. And that would highlight it in a different way. Is that wrong? Or is that something that would be good because it would showcase it? That's the question. Is it right or wrong? Is it a good idea? Is it not a good idea? I know that's a new one. I didn't warn you guys that I was going to ask. All right. Whoops. So if you want to think about it for a minute, we can move on to something else and we can swing back to it.
I can answer.
Okay, go ahead.
I can see the good, and I can also see how some people may perceive it as negative. I was in a sub club called, we all know in the spouse clubs there are sub clubs, and we think, okay, it's, I'm going to talk about the age gap for a second. Some people say I don't want to be in the craft or the cooking club or whatever. And so I was in one of them, and we did book club. So I purposely picked February for Black History Month, and we read a Black history book. It's called The Vanishing Half. It's one of my favorite books. And I cooked a Southern meal. I cooked shrimp and grits, and we had dialogue about it. And it was great with the group. So some people, they, you know, it was great for our group. We loved it. And I can also see how some people will say, why do we have to do it? We're military wise. We already had to deal with packing up, looking for a new job, finding this, that, and so on and so forth. So I don't want to do that. But who we are, our heritage, that's a part. I can see both sides, but I just wanted to give like a good perception of it, and also like a bad. You don't want anybody to feel like, oh, I'm the only person, like, you know. But I think it's maybe just start off with maybe it necessarily be a culture. It could be something like make a meal from where you're from, or just something to embrace everybody.
Yeah, I think that's great. Okay. I'll check out the chat again in a minute, but
Carolyn, if I could add, going back to
Of
that,
course.
I think when you're talking about racial diversity, that could be tricky, right? Because like Tanisha mentioned, you know, shrimp and grits. I'm Black, Tanisha's Black. I never had shrimp and grits till I was an adult. So it wasn't necessarily because I'm not Southern, right?
Right.
I was an Air Force kid. And so that doesn't necessarily speak to me as a Black meal. That's a Southern meal, you know? So I don't know. I think that can get tricky. That could get messy. That could, you know,
Yeah.
that's,
Well,
you know, that's a fine line right there.
I do like the
Well,
book
Michelle,
club idea.
I was gonna say I see it as exposure. So even if you like a military child, or you know, what I'm trying to say, brat, or me being from the North and not necessarily eating, shrimp and grits until I was an adult as well. But the exposure, like if you had this at your club and now you're giving me a dish of what, was something dear to you growing up. And so it's just now exposing everybody to different things that they typically would not have, I guess, just wasn't a part of their upbringing. So it's opening your mind to different ways of, eating, just like when we travel, different ways of eating,
Right.
different. Mhm.
Right,
So
right. I agree.
Mhm.
So I guess for me, it brings up the thought of when you are trying to plan events for your spouse club, a lot of times we try to incorporate things that are part of the area. So if you're overseas, you want to try to incorporate some of the culture and the traditions that you see, because we're curious. Like if when we were stationed in Arizona, I get that Tucson, it's like it's the US, but it's the Southeast, and that's completely different to me. There were little things that we saw out in the community outside of the gates that we're like, hey, like let's bring that into the gates, because you do have some people that don't necessarily leave the base. The base itself is a little mini city. If you don't have a reason to leave, you don't have to leave. You can spend all 3 years, 4 years, however long you're stationed there, not leaving the confinements of your little mini city of a base. So I guess to me, it brings the thought of, as a club, if we push to try to bring some of that community from outside of the gates into the club so that we can say that we're educating you on the area that we're in, what would make it different by having the international tables or the tables where people get to bring their culture from within the gates just a little closer to this one room where we're set up? How is that any different than doing like an international potluck? Just to me, there's a little bit more meaning behind it with the spouses, because I'm sharing a part of my life. I'm sharing something that is sacred to me with you, and I'm kind of that's a vulnerable state to kind of be in if you think about it, because it's not always receptive, or it's not always receptive, I should say, because I know for me, I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but there's a dish we learned overseas called kelaguen. My husband loves it. It's pretty much shredded chicken with lemon juice and some green onions. Very simple to make. And when you first eat it, if you're not used to how fine they make the chicken, you're kind of like, you might be a little off put by the texture of it. My family ended up loving it. We came back stateside. I made the dish for some of our family here, and one family member was like, "Yeah, that's nasty. I don't like it." And I'm just like, "Oh my God, like, no, how dare you not like this that I put my heart and soul in because it's our favorite." So to me, to bring it all together, I see setting up these tables, even though, yes, I agree, it can be a little touchy, it can be tricky because you are bringing multiple cultures into a room, you are bringing multiple beliefs, not just in conversation, but you actually actively bringing it into the room. But I see it as a moment of being vulnerable and speaking to that diversity piece that we're actually talking on tonight, where I'm sharing like a little piece of my heart. I'm sharing a piece of not the home you get to see when you come in, but the home that I hold sacred, that when I want to go to my place of relaxation, the place that grounds me, that I can turn to no matter what base we're stationed at, no matter what state or country you have me in. This little piece I'm actually sharing, and I feel like if we can get that to be magnified a little bit, um, it will kind of open up some of the door for that diversity piece that we're looking for, because it's not as guarded or as shielded, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there was a comment earlier, I think maybe Tanisha said it, about you know, Black History Month or Asian Heritage Month or whatever. And then somebody mentioned in the chat, you could have at every, if you have a monthly event, you could tie into the month of the whatever and ask people who are within your organization who are part of that population to present or to do a little side table or something. And that way it would always tie into whatever was happening in that month. I think that's kind of a cool idea. Represent it as you go along. Okay, so, oh, and then somebody else said, you know, like you could have an event, and I want to say I did this at Fort Cavazos one time. We had like a hometown event, and so this corner of the room was everybody who was from the South. This corner of the room was everybody from, you know, like the Southeast, and then the Southwest, and then the Pacific Northwest, and then New England, and people came in and, you know, wore something. The table was decorated. They all brought stuff to decorate, and it was pretty neat because you kind of got together with people. Oh, have you been to so and so state park? It's so fun. You should go next time you're home. You know, that kind of thing. It was really, that was a cool thing. So bringing it, including people in that way to share what their loves are based on where they're from in the United States, is kind of a cool idea too. It looks like I got a question from Missy over here.
Yes, I had a question for the panel. I just put it in the Q&A, but I know we talked a lot about things we can do, but I wanted to kind of hear if you guys could share a situation where a club turned you off due to your race, and how can other clubs avoid making that mistake? You know, what are the things that, you know, that messed it up for the club and you never went back, or something, you know, really bad experiences, just to be able to learn things not to do, as well as you guys have said so many things that should be done.
Oh, Tanisha, you're muted.
I exited if I want to answer. Okay. I'm not new to where I am, but this is my second time here. And the first time here, I found a really good group of friends. And this time I went to a super sign up, and yes, I was the only person looked like me. I sat at a table by myself because a lot of people came in with their friends and were going out. But I am an extrovert. I'm not an introvert. So even if you don't want to talk to me, I'm going to talk to you. And I know some people are not as, some people have the take, as you just said, Missy, okay, nobody wants to talk to me. I'm not going to waste my time, and I'm leaving. I have seen that happen. I have also seen way back in the past where a spouse and I went to an event together, and she was a Black spouse also, and I'm speaking from my opinion, my experience, my what happened to me and my friend. We were mistaken for enlisted officer wives, and we were told that the enlisted table was over there, but I politely corrected her and said that, you know, hi, my name is Tanisha and my husband is so. So I can see how that can make some people feel uncomfortable and not want to go back, but we want to not try to have those type of taboo moments. And even if we may hear of something like that happening to someone, try to be that person to, I don't want to say rectify it, but encourage them to try to come back, or say, hey, you want to go to this together. So that's my advice. And I know you may not know of every situation of every person, but we do have sign-in sheets when people come in, and send like thank you notes. Thank you for coming. Would you like to provide any feedback? And maybe in the feedback, you can get that opinion, because people are quick to give you that opinion via keystroke more so than giving it to your face. So that's my advice.
Does anybody else have anything to Missy's comment?
Rhonda has her hand up.
Yeah, it looks like we got one question from Rhonda over here.
Yeah, there was a comment that was made in the chat that I think it just kind of ties everything together. It says, I don't think this is the issue of minority members not joining. It's because they don't see the club as being for them. This is in part because they don't see people that look like them. It could also be because programming doesn't appear to cover their interests, and people bring their feelings from their last location to the new location. I think simply being aware and reaching out to spouses from various communities will fix this. There is nothing like a personal invitation to make you feel welcome.
Definitely. And that's so very true. If there is a way to have a personal invitation to anyone, your neighbor across the street, somebody from your church, somebody from your PTO that you're working with, just to invite them to come with you and accompany them, it makes such a huge difference if you have somebody to go with. And then you don't have to sit by yourself. And quite honestly, I think we should all work very hard within our boards to watch for people who are sitting by themselves and make sure it does not happen. As your board, it's very easy to get so busy when you're running an event that you forget about the individual person who is there to attend. So as a board, you should never sit together. You should always spread out. Everybody's like, but it's my one time to sit with my friend. Well, no, it's your one time to be a board member and promote your organization and promote your togetherness and be a part of bringing everyone together. And like was mentioned earlier, how Katrina was saying, when you sit at the table, if somebody's not engaged, you need to redirect the conversation. Somebody needs to be aware and be involved. And it's something that as a board, you should talk about before your event. And I don't know, assign 3 or 4 people. Okay, this month's your month to be out and about. Next month's somebody else's month. It's a way to make your people feel included and a part of it. And it's a very simple fix in that regard. So we have 2 minutes left. And in that time, I just want to make sure that if any of the panel members want to say something that they didn't get a chance to say tonight, I would just open it up to any of you guys if you have something you want to share.
Oh, go ahead,
Go ahead,
Michelle.
Katrina.
Oh,
Go ahead, Katrina, that's fine.
I was just going to say that I have met some of my closest and my dearest friends at spouses clubs, and I feel that they are a valuable part of our military community. So I know that we can do what's right and bring a diversity to our clubs. And so you all have heard some insightful things on how to do that and how to make people feel welcome, included, and just supported. And so just as Carolyn said, just think about those things when you're with your board, when you're recruiting people to be a part of those organizations. I just really think the spouses clubs are very valuable for our military community, and I want to see them thrive.
Thank you, Katrina. Okay, Michelle.
So I agree with the Katrina in that spouses clubs are very important, and they've been a constant in my entire Army spouse journey. And I would say that my very first experience with the spouses club and being on a board was because a friend invited me to go with her. And she was not Black. She was my white friend that lived next door. And she said, hey, come do this with me. And I said, okay. Now, being the introvert that I am, I always go with a friend. I've never gone anywhere and just gone to a spouses club event by myself, not knowing anybody. That's just me. But I've had some very good experiences with spouses clubs. And I think that, so I won't talk for a long time, but at the number of years that my husband has been in at this point, I find myself a lot of the time being the only person of color, spouse of color in the room at the table. And so I feel like I have a certain responsibility to sit at that seat and bring other people with me when I have that opportunity. So I think it's a two-way thing. We can't, as spouses of color, we can't just sit back and wait for someone to come and get us and say, hey, come and do this. I think we have to, I think Tanisha was saying, meet people where they are. And so it's kind of a two-way street. And yes, there will be people who don't want me to be at the table, but at my age, I'm like, I don't care, I'm here, deal with it. But anyway, the last thing I'll say is I want to give kudos to everybody that called in and joined this conversation, because it is very important. And just the fact that you're here shows that you're thinking about it and that it's important to you. So thank you for your time, and thank you for listening to me ramble a little bit.
No problem. Pia, did you have something to add?
I'll just piggyback off Michelle. Like she said, if she's the only one, if we're the only one, we can be the only one and still make a change. So my last statement is just be the change that you want to see. When I joined the Spouse Club 15 years ago for my first time, there was only one other girl that looked like me. And once I joined, I was able to bring in another person, and that helps. So if there's only one, that's okay. We can start with being the only one and help others come on and enjoy the greatness that there is, because yes, spouse clubs are very important.
Thank you. All right, Tanisha.
Last tidbit, all clubs are raising money to support their community, the local families, military families. And if you, nobody else understands what you're going through but a fellow military spouse. They can understand it better sometimes than your own spouse. So why not join this network of amazing spouses? And if, hey, you don't want to do cooking, crafting, or whatever, you want to start a spades, a club, a Uno game night club, go say, hey, this is not my thing. I would like to start this. And that's even a better way to attract people who like the same things that you like. So my comment is, don't complain about it, be about it.
She's got all sorts of really good sayings. Meet the people where they are, everything. She's got it all. You need to write a little book we can all have. Pull it up when it is appropriate. That's great. Taka, you got anything you want to add?
I guess my biggest thing is, if you've heard me speak before, you'll know that I believe that as military spouses, we live in the past, present, and future. What we are experiencing today, I'm pretty sure they have experienced in the past. And what we're experiencing today, there's going to be a set of spouses that's going to come in the future, and they're going to look at the same issue and be like, what are we doing? What do we do? And that is where networking is key. And your biggest network is your spouse's club, because those are the women and the men who have walked in the same shoes that you are putting your feet in the moment. They have nice tidbits of information that can help get you through. Don't be afraid to look at get with the club's historian, because a lot of the clubs go back pretty far, and there's some nice information and there's some really nice pictures too. And I also want to leave with, as clubs, I understand that everybody has different experiences, good and bad, but it's similar to relationships. We all have an ex for a reason sometimes, right? And I feel like that's what the clubs, as clubs, we shouldn't necessarily focus on trying to fix what another club did wrong. Instead, we should be looking at, how do we improve this relationship with the population that we have right now? What do you need from me that I can give you to make you want to be like, you know what? I can sacrifice a couple hours a month to hang out with you for a little bit. And just let people be their authentic self. Don't make it seem like there's a box that needs to be checked or something that we need to fit in. Just authentically come to the club and be yourself. If you are a loud person, which that's me, come out, be that loud person. You will find your fellow loud person, right? Or that person that's quiet that will compliment you. But yeah, just know that it's not a problem that's going to go away quickly in terms of trying to diversify the clubs. But once we get the hang of it, I'm pretty sure the same conversation is going to come up again years later. But hopefully they'll be able to look back at our recording and be like, you know what? Like, these ladies really rocked it out. Like, at some point we were on the right track. So let's get back on that track. That's my 2 bits.
All right. Thank you. All right, guys, we are out of time, and I don't want to hold anybody up. I just put an email address in the chat. So if you have more questions and you want to talk directly to one of our panelists, or you want to send it out into the to the council, and we can answer any of your questions or direct them wherever they need to go, so that if you didn't get a chance to say what you wanted to say tonight, it still gives you the opportunity to follow up. Just keep in mind that we will be having more conversations in this series as we move throughout this particular board year. So if you have any ideas of things you would like for us to discuss and bring a panel together, let me know. I'm happy to explore all the options, because as a council, we are here to serve you, and we want to answer the questions that you have. And we don't want to spend time answering questions that you don't care about. So let me know, and we can work those in. So thanks again for everybody on the panel, for your time and your energy and your authenticity as you shared your stories. We really appreciate it. And thanks to everybody that joined us tonight, and to my council folks who are trying to keep me straight as we go through all of this. So hope to see you guys next time, and make sure, if you're not already, to join our Facebook group, which is a private group. You have to ask to join, and it's called the Council for Military Spouse Discussion Group. And we'd love to have your questions come up there, because it's an amazing resource for all spouses to get in and answer each other's questions. So collaboration is an amazing thing. So thanks to everybody for joining us, and we hope to see you next time. See you later. Bye.